to then dumb the population down where they are incapable of revolting because they have been turned into mindless sheep. As Bertrand Russell said, in the near future, under the scientific dictatorship engineered by us, in his words, he said us, a revolt by the proletariat or the general population, the unwashed masses, will be as unthinkable as a revolt of sheep against the practice of eating mutton or sheep, for those that don't know what mutton is. And so it's like saying, you know, looking out your front window if you raise sheep and you shear them every year, but you also sell some for meat, and saying, yeah, the sheep aren't going to come in our house with clubs and beat us over the head and have a revolt. And so for the globalist, world government is only the beginning. Once it's in place, once you're purely bankrupted and controlled by the nanny state, the health department established in the U.S. about 95 years ago or so, in England about 130 years ago, it was founded for social hygiene, racial hygiene, for infanticide, sterilization, drugging of the water, and it's all publicly stated, and that's the plan. And it's all being carried out. The food's poison, the water, the drugs, the vaccines, and it's meant to block the increase in life expectancy that industrialization brings. Then the homicidal plutocracy, as you amply describe it, good term you've coined there, Peter. They then profit on extending life when you would be dying at about 65 because of the poisons and things they've introduced. They can now extend that a decade or so, but they ensure that all of your wealth is then extracted. And the average doctor is compartmentalized and isn't aware of this. So use what term you want: scientific dictatorship, monopoly eugenics, end-game dictatorship, homicidal, end-game plutocracy. You can use whatever term you want, but this is full-spectrum dominance. If a population, if a tribe really fought the Romans, if a German tribe or a Austrian tribe or a British tribe would submit and become part of the auxiliaries, you'd have the main legions with the auxiliary foreign armies behind them. If they submitted, they would be brought into the auxiliaries. And normally they'd have to submit and let some of their women be shipped off to slavery and their children be shipped off to be gladiators or to be house servants. You know, submission was a pretty tough lot, but the warrior class would then be allowed to have some whores and have some booty, have some gold, have some goodies, about a third of what the Romans got. Well, many of the Roman troops weren't citizens yet. They had to serve 25 years and then become citizens. But if you resisted, they would kill everyone, every man, woman, and child. The Israelites did this as well. They exterminated those in that surrounding area when they took over what is Israel today, Jerusalem. And, of course, other countries, other tribes did that as well. They didn't invent that. And then they would also salt the earth so no plants could grow. In case anybody had run to the hills after the Romans pulled out, no one could resist them. So the scientific dictatorship said, look, there's billions of people. They're eating up all the resources. They're a bunch of dumbed-down masses. You know, I can go to the shopping mall or Schlitterbahn and look at the crowds, and they look like hell. They look dumbed down. I mean, maybe people looking at me, I look pretty bad. But the point is, I want to lift those people up, not kill them all. But the elites look at people and say, we want to get rid of these people right now. And the globalists say, look, the public's too dumb to even realize what patriots like myself and you were warning them about, Peter. So why should they even give the population a shot at living and being part of the future when the population doesn't want it? They want to die. That's the globalist view. But anything else, Peter?
No, that's fine. Thank you for giving me the time, and I have nothing more to say except I wish you well.
Well, I wish you well, sir, and God bless you. I mean, it is painful to sit in restaurants or on the street or swimming in a river and to hear adults speak. I mean, I remember 30 years ago, people could speak much better than they do now. I mean, they're like a bunch of animals. It's like they've been hit by mutation rays. And Doesn't matter what color they are or what socioeconomic strata even. No one says you're welcome when you say thank you, or they say no problem. You know, that means like it's a problem that I'm bringing you a glass of beer at a restaurant. Adults can't talk. I have conversations with people with college degrees who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and I'll be using words to describe things, and they say, what does that mean? Or they'll think I'm showing off. I have had many of my crew, when they talk about their rights to police say, you're reading too much. We've had TSA repeatedly, when people talk about their rights in TSA checkpoints, say, you're reading too much. Don't use those fancy words with me. If you see Mike Judge's excellent film, Idiocracy, when he's, 500 years in the future in a court hearing with a judge, the judge can hardly talk. And just because the guy has, he's kind of like a blue-collar dummy in the year 2010, but in the year 2300 or whatever it is, I forget the exact date, no one can even hardly talk. They can just make jokes and giggle and laugh, and people's easy chairs are toilets because all they do is watch television. Well, I got news for you. The globalists aren't going to let you get to that point. They're killing you. They're killing me, deader than a hammer. They're killing I, deader than a hammer. If you underestimate how predatory the ruling class is, you've got a problem. And finally, Limbaugh, last Friday, admitted there's a corrupt blue blood robber baron, these are quotes, ruling class that uses government to expand their power and that wants to destroy the middle class and America. He finally admits there's a corrupt clique running America. He's always denied that. This is a big deal. It just shows how far we've come. Now we can have a real debate about this. And we would have already been able to have a real debate because we're making Limbaugh and others passé because they won't cover the real issues. Very exciting. Let's talk to Eric in California. Eric, you're on the air.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I'm very honored to speak with you. I'm a proud PrisonPlanet.tv member. I'm also a former air traffic controller in the U.S. Air Force. And once the shock of 9/11 wore off, my training pretty much disclosed how absurd 9/11 was, but that's not the reason that I'm calling. The reason that I'm calling is that, with this whole WikiLeaks story, I kind of feel that this is maybe possibly the beginning of the end of independent news via the Internet. I almost get the feeling that it's like a false flag.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you whether WikiLeaks is good or not, and I tend to think they're good. They are now trying to use, look, they used this clip of this government official saying I wouldn't help the white farmer, but it was out of context. I'm seeing a drumbeat everywhere of the mainstream media needs to shut down the alternative media. And now because of this WikiLeaks thing, we've got to have a gatekeeper to check things first before it can be put on the web because this is just too dangerous. And yes, that's one of the points I was going to bring up. Very, very dangerous time. Go ahead.
Well, hey, that's all I had to say, Alex. Just keep up the good work. You've enlightened me in many, many ways, and I appreciate that.
Well, let's go back, though, Eric, because the truth is the truth. And NORAD did stand down. There were CIA drills of the very targets being hit at the very same time. We have the police saying, get back, the government's going to blow up Building 7. I mean, that's CNN. I mean, we know the official story is a lie. And we can't just choose to say, well, I'll buy what the government says about 9/11 because it feels better. Now, as an air traffic controller with the Air Force, formerly, what sent up red flags for you?
Well, 757s are not stealth. And, we were trained to control planes from hitting one another. And if beacons went down, if communications went down, as a controller, we still had the responsibility to keep that aluminum from hitting. And so when you have a primary target that's being painted on a radar screen that's going off its airway, which is its flight path to its destination, and their story is that they turn the transponders off. Well, when I was controlling from 1983 to 87, we could tag those targets and put our own tracking data on it, meaning that, we could tag that target.
And they did mark the targets, but then NORAD came in and took control and put simulation overlays and was removing it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think any of us know because they haven't really talked about it. But what's absurd is that those targets, those don't go away. And if we're off course and you've got a controller that's responsible for that particular aircraft, and he's also responsible for other aircraft that he's controlling, and then this target is getting ready to hit some other controller's airspace that they have to control, they have to let people know. And it's not only a controller, but that controller has an assistant next to him, and then standing over his head, he's got a supervisor. So the whole damn thing is absurd, completely.
Eric, I appreciate your call, but what I'm telling you is we have the tapes. There were simulations going on to confuse the air traffic controllers. We'll be right back.